In the 14th century, Europe was a place of great contrasts. There were grand castles and noble knights, but there were also peasants who toiled in the fields and lived in poverty. Life was tough, but people found ways to make the best of it. However, all of that changed when the Black Death arrived. The disease came from the east, brought over by traders and merchants who traveled along the Silk Road. At first, people didn't realize what was happening. They thought it was just another sickness, like the flu or a bad cold. But soon enough, they realized that this was something much worse. The symptoms of the Black Death were terrible. People would start to feel sick, with fever and chills. Then, their lymph nodes would start to swell up, forming painful buboes. The buboes would turn black, hence the name Black Death. Some people would also develop black patches on their skin, which was a sign of internal bleeding. It was a painful, agonizing way to die. The Black Death spread quickly, traveling along trade routes and infecting people in cities and towns all across Europe. It didn't matter if you were rich or poor, noble or peasant. The disease didn't discriminate. It was estimated that up to 60% of Europe's population died from the Black Death, a number that is almost unimaginable today. As the death toll rose, panic set in. People started to turn on each other, accusing their neighbors of being witches or poisoning the wells. They thought that the disease was a punishment from God, or a sign of the end of the world. It was a time of fear and uncertainty, as people struggled to understand what was happening to them. The Black Death had a profound impact on European society. With so many people dying, there was a labor shortage, which led to economic turmoil. Peasants started to demand higher wages and better working conditions, which was a major shift in the power dynamic between the ruling class and the common people. Eventually, the Black Death started to recede. It's not clear why, but some historians think that it was because so many people had already died that the disease couldn't find any more hosts. It took many years for Europe to recover, but eventually, life went back to something resembling normal. The Black Death had ravaged Europe, leaving behind a trail of death and destruction. But the survivors, in their grief and despair, began to rebuild their lives and their communities. They faced many challenges, but also opportunities for change. In the countryside, the death toll had been especially high. Many villages and towns had lost a significant portion of their population, leaving behind fields and farms that were now unworked. The few surviving peasants and laborers suddenly found themselves in high demand, with lords and landowners competing for their services. Wages rose, and laborers were able to demand better working conditions and more rights. In the cities, the story was different. The death toll had been high here as well, but many more people had survived, drawn by the promise of better living conditions and opportunities for work. The influx of people led to overcrowding and unsanitary conditions, which made it easier for diseases to spread. But it also created opportunities for new forms of social and economic organization. Tradespeople and artisans banded together in guilds, which gave them more bargaining power and helped to regulate competition. The Black Death also had significant political consequences. The feudal system, which had governed much of medieval Europe, began to break down as lords and nobles found it increasingly difficult to control their serfs and peasants. Many peasants were now able to demand more freedom and economic opportunities, and some even rebelled against their lords in the years that followed. Religious and cultural attitudes also changed after the Black Death. Many people questioned the traditional beliefs that had failed to protect them from the disease, and some turned to new forms of spirituality or even skepticism. The theme of death and mortality became more prominent in art and literature, as people tried to come to terms with the fragility of life. In the wake of the Black Death, there were also significant public health reforms. Authorities recognized the need to prevent the spread of disease, and implemented measures such as quarantine and sanitation. These reforms helped to improve public health and reduce the frequency of epidemics in the centuries that followed. Overall, the aftermath of the Black Death was a time of great change and transformation in Europe. The survivors faced many challenges, but they also seized opportunities for social and economic advancement, and paved the way for the development of modern European society.
Don't forget to subscribe for more top 10 videos just like this one, and let us know what you'd like to see next in the comments.